Hello team, it's Heather Roldan. I'm going to talk about our discussion for this module, and one of the first questions that we were asked is, why does choosing the right method matter in practitioner research? And I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is choosing the right method answers the question that you're asking. And it's a lot of times that if you choose the incorrect method, you may be answering a question that you did not intend to ask, and you might not be answering the question in which you are particularly answering. You want to make sure that your data collection and methodology are in line with your particular question and what you are asking. That might mean that when you decide on your data collection that you go back and refine your initial question so that everything is in alignment. Methodology is important because it does influence the type of data that you collect. Obviously, there's three main types of data collection: qualitative, quantitative, and then mixed methods. Quantitative is basically numerical analysis, which can answer a lot of questions. And then there's qualitative analysis, which can answer a bunch of different questions. And then there's a combination of those two, using a kind of mixed methods approach. For myself, my primary method is going to be a qualitative approach, using a constant comparative model, so that way I can adjust my approach and my data collection as time is progressing. I am planning on using a combination of different methods. Surveys, I'd like to kind of survey my students on what they view participation means. So that way it's not just my definition of participation. I can kind of get a perspective of, what do the students feel is participation? And not just participation, but active participation. What does that look like to them? So I'm not going under an assumption of what I think participation looks like. So I do plan on using surveys with my students, both a before and after approach, so that way I can see if things have changed once I introduce the idea of interactive whiteboards into the classroom. If they feel their level of participation has changed, has their view of what the definition of participation is, and has that changed throughout the experiment. I do plan on just using some observational methods, kind of, taking account how many students are participating before I introduce whiteboards versus after I introduce whiteboards. Also kind of taking into account some underlying, what we call lurking variables, things that may also be of consideration into the study as well. Some additional data sources that I might use is their initial test, which did not include any kind of response system or whiteboard integration into my teaching. So I do plan on using their first test scores, as well as a comparison to a second or third test once the whiteboards have been introduced and used kind of more on a consistent nature, to see if there is an increase in test scores, although not an initial question, but something that maybe would reflect participation. If they're participating more, they're engaged more in the lesson, therefore performing better on assessments. So that is something I do plan on including, as well as it being a quantitative approach, which is where my strength is, being a statistician. So I do plan on bringing that as well. As far as the time, accessibility, and resources, the time actually works out great for me. Being a college professor, my courses are in a semester setting, so it does allow me to collect that data and do some analysis in the same time format as our current course. So that's really helpful. I actually, before even devising this research question, I had already reached out to the secretary of my department to see if she could order for me just some of those small 9x12 whiteboards with some markers, just so I could get my students kind of interacting with me a little bit more. I also do plan on seeing if I can get my hands on some of those whiteboards that I can hang on the wall so students can get out of their seat and not just sitting and more engaged. So I do plan on increasing the level of engagement throughout this research project. Like I said, I do plan on doing a constant comparative model, so that way I'm able to consistently alter and change my method of data collection and what's being collected. And that might mean along the way that I have to adjust my research question, and I'm fully prepared for that. Like I said, I feel like I can reasonably do this within a semester, and I think I have the advantage of the courses that I teach are also in a semester setting, so that does help me. I do hope that the data collection does strengthen my study, because in doing a lot of reflection, I was able to hopefully come up with some data collection ideas that will directly answer my research question, and my supporting questions as well. So hopefully, a whole lot of time won't be wasted in superfluous data collection that really, in the end of things, doesn't answer my initial research question. I hope to gain some insights into qualitative analysis. I have done some qualitative analysis before. I do find it quite challenging as my background is quantitative analysis, and I'm very strong and very confident in quantitative analysis. And I'm hoping that by kind of jumping in and diving into qualitative analysis, that I will be able to get a better understanding and hopefully become a little bit more proficient and expedient at doing qualitative measures. I do hope to be able to take this study and kind of bring it to my department chair, my dean of students, as well as, the vice president of the college, to say, hey, look, increasing student engagement does increase student test scores, and kind of take this initial study, maybe bring it into my spring semester and kind of elongate this study into a further study and see if we can improve, student achievement, especially in these lower achieving developmental educational courses at the community college level. Thanks, guys, and I look forward to seeing your videos as well. Have a great one.